Hi, and welcome to Potentials. This is Lija, and today we have Ani Osaru back on the show. I'm so excited to have you back, and thank you for coming back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. It's great to be back. I love what you're doing with the channel. I see that the channel is growing, and I would love to get into some great information today with you.
I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so I want to restate some things from my previous YouTube that was erased. Didn't get to re-upload the video. So altar work is very pivotal to the science of spirituality. Some people deem altar work, part of this Luciferian agenda and everything. But if you really look at it, in every religion, every core of a religion, you see an altar there. I remember growing up in church, looking at the pastor sit high up, like the altar in my church, it was way high up. So I was little, probably 9 years old, sitting in the audience with my mom or my grandma, and I would see the pastor so high up talking from this little podium. And
Yeah,
then I realized right below when they would do communion that all of these things, I mean, I'm realizing now they're all altars. They had it set up, they had the people that put on the white gloves. They would come over and they would, distribute it to the rest of the people in the church people.
right.
So I've started to learn going back into Egyptian, Sumerian, and other cultures that altar work is very, very pivotal to all of this. Matter of fact, I'm gonna try to share screen. Am I able to share screen?
Oh, let me fix that.
Okay.
I have to make you host because that's how that works on my phone, unfortunately.
Okay. Just to
Um,
give the people some visuals, because I know they'll want to hear me being
all right,
bored.
go right ahead now.
Yeah, they want to hear boring Ani. They give them something to look at real quick. All right. So yeah, so I never would think in 100 years that these things would be core aspects of spirituality. I think everyone should have some type of altar in their house, some type of altar giving reverence, because it don't have to do with some type of entity. It could just be an altar with your loved ones that went to the other side already, that made the transition. So you can put your grandma,
Yep.
you can put your aunt, or your uncle, all of the people in your family that made the transition. I feel as though you should absolutely have some type of homage being paid
Yes.
to them in the household.
Yep.
And I feel like that will reimburse the energy and have them feed, or be a constitutional refraction of divine symmetry with spiritual aspects that we go into detail with other things. They can be a part of that whole thing if you do that for them, because
Right.
sometimes we do these things and we never contributed to our loved ones that made the transition.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying?
I do. Yes. I actually do have a little altar with my a picture of my mother and my grandmother together.
Me as well.
Um, yeah, and it's like there's a little candle right in front of them. It's very Italian.
That's great. That's great. And that's another thing. Ethnicity is important. Paying homage to your ethnic group, putting some things to, you know, corroborate with that as well. I think people should look into.
Yeah,
Really have examples to look into this. It's a great science. I feel like it's a very great science. I do not see my foul. No, it's quantum supremacy. I don't know where my foul went
hmm.
with all of my alter science. Maybe the demiurge got it.
Ah, Yes. Ancient AI.
Yeah, maybe the demiurge. So guys, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just pull up random graphics because one thing I'm good at is random things. So I'm gonna put in spiritual altars, and I'm gonna give you guys some information today on that.
Awesome.
All right. Ooh, that looks spooky, right? Let's look at this one
Ooh,
right here. All right,
yeah.
so what I'm understanding is every soul, and feel free to ask any questions, Leisha, as I continue, but every soul has a destiny to be a creative agent. So this is one of the core principles. So every soul has a destiny to be a creative agent. There's a tessellation of morphogenetic lattices within something called a halcyon. A halcyon is, it should be a region of the house where the altar is located. So that will be called the halcyon area. Now, there is no measurement to the numerical measurements of magnetic resonances in halcyons. So the reason why we do it, from what they're understanding from a physics point of view, elementals, these things called elementals, they're entropic, they're negentropic, and they are a endless variables of one element, which is hydrogen. So they're saying that hydrogen is the production of all of these other elements. Other elements are hydrogen at different spin cycles, or a certain spin cycle, it produces what we call the 4 or 5 elements. So it's important every altar has a glass of water. You see these glasses up here? I don't know if they have water in it, but
Yeah.
very
Okay.
quintessential to that, because the energy of the future is hydrogen, if people don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, so the elementals are simply hydrogen spinning at different variable speeds. So in the development of your consciousness cycle, it should be tethered to the altar region. So we
Hmm.
all have a way that we're developing our conscious cycles. Some people are into anime. You may want to put anime up on your altar. Some people may be in the Hindu type thing. They may want to mix, ethnic cultures along with other things. Me, I'm more of a chaos type of thing. So I'll put anything on my altar. Anything
Hmm.
that I see that has resonance with me through a certain amount of days through the month, I'll take that and I'll put that up on the altar. Matter of fact, I'm building a bigger altar since I got a bigger space in this new living space I'm in.
Nice.
Yeah, so our consciousness cycle is tethered to the altar region of our spiritual workspace. So in every house, there should be a spiritual workspace for us, because we're in a actual spiritual war. So we
Yeah.
need to dedicate a portion of our lives to a workspace to deal with spirituality.
Yeah. You could have one in each room.
That as well. Now, that's another thing. My master teacher, not only would he have an altar in every room, he would paint the room according to the deity that the altar was centered around.
Wow.
So he would have an all purple room over there, then he would have an all pink room, then he would have an all white room, he would have a black room, and he had a bigger house.
Yeah.
He would have dedications to the deities, because he would tell me the deities need to have their own environment, spiritual environment, and they get mad. But that's allegorical, saying that you don't want to abrupt the frequency of that one deity, because every deity is representative of a conscious cycle of yourself. We're not speaking about something outside. When we say deity, is not external.
Right.
We're talking about throughout. Every day to me is a deity. So we have small deitic energies and we have bigger deitic energies. Every
Mm.
day counts as its own type of smaller deitic cycle. But throughout a month, you may have a month where a lot of crazy stuff happened to you. You're dealing with a certain deitic force during that time frame. And then we move into the next month, and you may have a more relaxed month. You may have a big financial type of happening in your life that really helps you out for the rest of the year. Well,
Yes,
now,
please.
right,
Let's
right.
speak that into existence.
We need those deities a lot more. We need to figure out how to get those a lot more, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look into the history, you'll find the favorable deities for that. Maybe you need to put them all clustered in a certain area, give them their own space, and say, hey, I need to have more months like this.
Yeah. Let's do
So,
12 of those.
exactly. So you make your whole house around just
Yeah,
prosperity deities. So
right.
that's one, that's some aspects of it, and I'll go deeper into that in a little bit. But so there are conscious cycles. That's what I spoke on is consciousness cycles. It's tethered to the altar region of the spiritual workplace. The word altar comes from the word altar, which has the beginning syllable tau, T-A-U. Tau translates to the way, the way. So we can expand the consciousness variables in a holonomical process by understanding the terminologies where they come from. So the Egyptian altar comes from the goddess of the Typhonian sector called Tyert. You hear about this hippopotamus goddess, Tyert. Tyert is called the cosmic mother. She's the bearer of all gods. So literally the word altar means a bearer of gods.
Huh.
The Celt. Mm-hmm. You had a
Oh, that's
question?
interesting. No, no, I just thought that was interesting.
Yep. Yeah. So, but her name is Tau-ert, T-A-U-R-T. Comes from the word Tau, which comes from the word altar, which becomes altar.
Wow.
So you also have the Celtic word Tor, T-O-R, which means a sacred hill in Polynesian.
Hmm.
So you have the Celtic side. Then there's the Pleiadian side, Tau Anu, which is the duality of the upper and lower worlds. So all of these terms are just giving you the automatological history of where the word comes from. So this area you set up is an instrumental tool for your imagination. So that's a big note for guys to write down. The area that you set up in your household should be a instrumental tool for your imagination. Why is that important? Because the imagination is the engine to the vehicle of your celestial travels. So we travel celestially, whether we know it or not, and we also travel from a chthonic state. That means the underworld. That's when we're going through more subconscious dealings of trauma. Because our traumas is the reason why we got on a spiritual journey in the first place. The reason why we're seeking healing is because of traumatic experience. That is the trigger to this all. So even though there's a polarity to it, the imagination is open to both cycles. And of course, we want to make more celestial travels than others. But your vehicle, your imagination deals with the logomorphics. Logomorphics is explained if you look into thought development from a physics point of view. Thoughts come from, they're programmed through something called logomorphics. I did a video on Patreon about it. That's a whole other lecture, but logomorphics are the synthesizing of baryons and mesons. So we're talking quantum particles, small particles from a subatomic level. And the logomorphous is making the baryons, mesons become acute to the conscious variables of the hydrogen from alternative perception. So when I say hydrogen, water, hydrogen is going to be the future energy of this planet. Everyone's talking about this. I mean, it's a known secret. I don't know if you remember the Buffalo shooting in New York a couple of years ago. In the Buffalo shooting, yeah, it was a massacre. A lot of people died. But there was one guy who was developing a hydrogen model for a car that got killed.
Ah,
And some people think that it was a hit,
yes,
on him.
right.
And everyone else was collateral damage for him.
Yeah.
So
That's-
hydrogen. So the water on your altar symbolizes the conscious fields of the pleroma, the highest fields of degree where all of your souls, your spiritual energy comes from these divine fields of consciousness called aeons in the pleroma. The water on your altar is representative of that. So you shouldn't keep that water on your altar for a significant period of time. It should always be changing. It should also have sometimes crystals or other means of activating energy on it.
Yes.
You
That's
see,
so interesting that you say that because I do this already and I didn't know why I was doing
yes,
it.
yes, it's because it's a part of us. This thing is a part of us. So
It's
not only
instinctive.
that, you
Yeah, it's intuitive, I think, for us to just know these things, right?
yeah, because we've been doing it for some of us have been doing it for a very long time, you
Right.
know, more than others. So the reason why that aspect is important is the hydrogen is accepting to the deity. So for instance, you understand that water goes through a process of what is it, condensation,
Yes.
evaporation.
Yes.
So the process of evaporation is allegorical and symbolic to the gods, the deities within you, drinking the water on your altar as it evaporates. That's what it's
Mm,
representative of. So that's why
okay.
you put water. Some people even put food out there. You can put food.
Yeah.
You can put the favorite food of your ancestor, because we are our ancestors. That's what people don't
Yeah.
understand. You
Yeah.
are your ancestors. So put their favorite candies. They may have, I don't know, they may like an apple cider or something different. So it's not just water, but water definitely needs to be there. It needs to be one of the things there. All right. So you have any questions from there before I move to this
Oh,
next part?
no, no, that so far it's been very, very, I mean, enlightening. I love this. Thank you.
Okay, great. No problem. And okay, so the fabric and nature of souls are tethered to what's called our causal body. And the causal body is synchronized back to us through the activities we interact with in meditation, combined with altered quantum mechanics. So there is a creative intention capacity within us that finds a enlightened state out of the negrito blackening stage, which is the basis of alchemy, comes from the negrito, to the fullness of the soul's creative nature of finding effective expressions in the outer world. The message is for you to know how the work renders change upon the world. So what you're doing with your altar, what deity you may be focusing on, will render a change. The message is for you to try to render a change upon the world or on yourself from other life forms of reality. Because the word Kabbalah means to receive. We either give light or we're receiving it. Okay.
Yes.
Now, there's parts and layers of the souls. People can look up this study from Greek philosophers called Stoicism. In Stoicism, they talk about a part of the soul called the hegemonicon. And the hegemonicon is a part of the soul that wants to work through a personality. A personality is a form of our lower self. And it's an instrument for the soul to mentally, spiritually figure out what is getting in the way from the rest of the soul, the other parts of the soul, to propagate properly to where it needs to be. So here we have a problem because there must be a homogeneous resonance between the soul and your altar And if your personality or your lower self is getting in the way, then that's not going to be very good for that, right?
Right.
So our spiritual workspace, like I said, is for us to achieve mastery over the realms, over other realms as well. It wants to use the altar and its creative agency to uplift, transcend something not related just to itself, but to things that are beyond the limits of reality. It's another key note. So this is all of an understanding of the science to how you have to get both parts of what's being displayed here. The soul is destined to make manifest its destined potential. So what that potential is becomes dissected into what esotericism describes to us as ray lines. Each ray will go about utilizing its own superpowers by way of seeing the outer world throughout different types of lenses. So within us, the Egyptians and the Typhonians believed that we had 7 rays of souls. And these rays have umbilical rays of communication to a pleroma. So through us, we have these main conscious threads of these rays from our soul that connects to 7 parts. And each 7 parts bestows a different lens in how we look at reality. So we have 7 eyeballs, just like chakras. Each one of our chakras represents a different psycho-energetic part of ourselves that is connected emotionally to the trauma throughout our life. There are cosmic eyeballs, is what these 7.
Okay.
So we have 7 cosmic eyeballs called chakrams or ray lines. Do we
Right.
have any questions? I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, no. That makes sense because I was trying to figure out how they correlate, but that makes sense now. I get it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, just making sure. So how your altar is set up displays the unique creative expression of each individual ray line. So if you are more, well, it depends on what you're dealing with. I'm pretty sure there's some people that may want to be more into the root chakra. They may have a room with a lot of sexual energy, for that aspect, because that's what they're in. I mean, if you go in a person's house and you see that set up a whole lot, that may be representative that they're paying homage to that ray line in themselves. But others may be more in the crown chakra. They maybe have, way out there type stuff, UFO type stuff, and all
Yeah.
these type of things on their altar. So
Right.
you say something?
No, and I was just agreeing.
Okay. So the unique creative expressions. So it's expressing the way of the ray's nature. So, like I said, these may include photos of ancestors. They may include crystallography, different variables of candles based on magical operations or written affirmations. You may write something out. Maybe a journal filled with different, notes that you may have take in your spiritual journey. Plant botany, that's what you see in the background here.
Yes.
Statues of deities. There's the statues. Maybe it's sigils. Maybe you've been seeing a certain symbol in your mind, so you write the symbol out, you put it out there. Or pictures of objects that remind you of what you're manifesting. Maybe, that could be anything, really. I don't have to go into that, but also maybe you should put your beloved books that put you on this journey that actually activated you. Put the books that put you on the journey on your altar.
That's a good idea.
Yes, every altar or one of the altars in your house should have a meditation cushion, so you can meditate in front of it. A tarot deck, maybe a tarot deck. Some people may not be into that. Glass vase of water, and definitely incense.
Mm,
I'm gonna get
yeah.
into incense in a minute. So with this tangent of vehicles or tools, we can divide the difference, the difference we have spiritually in our work from the personality's formed thoughts and the soul's formless ones. So there's a consciousness that makes us identify ourselves with our physical impulse that connects us to emotional experiences that I talked about earlier, of our identifying in a 3D plane in its concrete mental thinking processes. Both areas of awareness are formed based on something I've been covering on my Patreon and YouTube called the Yakada or the Yakida. It's a Hebrew word. The Yakada or Yakida is a shard. So it's a shard from the pleroma singularity. The pleroma being the spiritual universe above the 3D universe. So you have a reflection of each. You have a 3D version, you have a spiritual version. The pleroma is the spiritual version of our universe, one where the totality of the divine powers are emanated from. So speaking about emanationism, the divine powers are emanated from this pleroma, essentially is heaven, essentially.
Yeah.
So the yakada in us is formless, is called a ostrom. And the ostrom is a part of ourselves that never comes into the physical. It's like our personal UFO. It deals in only the spiritual universe, but there's a way for us to literally use that umbilical ray of communication and connect to the Yakada. And that's what all of this esoteric info is about with the UAP, to get back into the physics and all of that. The Yakada is a big connection to the meditation that you make in front of the altar. Let me explain why. So the complete facet of the soul is in meditation. In Buddhism, they say they would stay asleep for a duration of an entire life, like ancient Buddhism. The meditation is a spawning of effervescence, that's another term for energy, that stretches three directions as a emanation. It's called the trivium of all existence. Sometimes the complete facet is springing itself forward, or what's called onward, or from the backwards. But it establishes something called a rapport with the inner group of what it is a part of. At times, it vaults its spawning upward.
Yes.
When it goes upward, now we're speaking the Z plane with
Yes. I was
Dave.
just going to say that.
Yeah, me and him talked about it.
Yep.
And basically, let me give you your audience something that's dynamic. When you're meditating, there is a period. If you learn how to meditate from a certain type of technique, your soul, your ray lines can connect to the Yakada at a certain period where there's an astrological lineup, and there's a certain hour when the black dot, or what Dave calls the quantum dot in you, is aligned properly to cause centripetal, access to cold fusion. So during a certain day, the beaming of your ray line is up.
Hmm.
Now it's up to you to figure out when your particular ray line is beaming up. Then it's a proper time to meditate, and it's just like the tractor beam. You go directly up, and you come into the greater life of every cell, atom, prion, plank within.
Sounds like the Kundalini.
It is. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Kundalini is the network of the beaming up. It's the whole
I'm
net.
wondering, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
No, go
I'm
ahead.
wondering if it has anything to do with when you were born, like what time of day you were born.
Absolutely has something to do. It's a study. I looked. I talked about it. It's called the It's called the. It's called your Kairos.
Ah,
Everyone,
yes.
when you're born, you have something called a kairos. The kairos is a individual's set time at birth
Hmm,
when the soul looks in a certain direction
interesting.
to transmutate.
That makes sense. And it just sort of popped into my head. So that was like an intuitive question.
Oh, it's great. It's great. It's like something else I talked about. It's like a calendar of when we interact with those phases of when our soul is looking out there. But I'll have to look back at my notes to give you guys that. It'll probably pop up in my mind as we go.
That sounds interesting.
So I think they call them portal days, by the way. I think the Aztecs called them portal days. The portal days is when, it's beaming up. But sometimes it's meditating downward. So when the ray line is going downward, we interact with the personality of ourselves. So we have a three-dimensional garment for creative intention, which is resuscitated or revived through our altar work daily. These triviums, interactivity of the soul makes what is called, okay, it's called gazing.
Hmm.
Gazing is another term for the ray line's connection to these parts of the soul. So the yakadas is an upward gaze. The yakada has to be in a downward gaze when we're in our upward gaze for us to connect with it. And then we beam. That's
Ah,
how we beam. And all right. So what the altar is, let's get deep into it. Let me get another picture. I don't like to be bored with one picture long. That's just me. Um, I can look at a certain picture. I'm like, it's time for a new picture. I think this was in my original video.
oh, cool.
So this is like a small one you can put near your bed or something.
Right.
What is the altar is a ancient computer. That's what the altar is. The altar is an ancient computer that programs realities and destinies. Exclamation point. Big note right there for you guys. The creative insight. So we have to have a creative insight is one of the most significant appendages for magical operation. The seven rays of the soul has to gather all of his energy by sifting through a quantum field of matriculating events to make itself capable to downward gaze at us all. Downward gaze. I'm sorry, I skipped the line. And the reality and destiny of us all is programming what is drawn through our altar work. It's got to assert its intention into a muddy place called the personality. So it's sorting through this muddy place, which is our personalities. And our personalities have something called sub-personalities that we envelop. So the personality is a place in us filled with currents that has measures of inward impurities. From the emotional point of view, there are still many base emotions that tend to crop up into our system that diverts the lower levels of the soul's attention away from the magical task. There are thoughts in our mental causal body that are separate from itself rather than the unitive emotions that make us up as a whole. This is the archon's home. In our emotions in the egoic continuum, the distorting factors block results. So the fulcrum of the house is the altar's workplace to assert the highest tangent of the seven rays to come down and penetrate the currents of our causal body, the persona, the personality we developed in life. And this penetration gives the magical operation a current to break up the spaces of unmitigated dead energy to move us forward in the insight or realities that need to be created to make this world more suitable for our aura.
Hmm.
Do we need to pause right there? Or if you have any questions or any comments on that?
No, that's good. No, please keep going.
Okay. So if someone has ever simply just meditated early in the day, and you feel inside that it was very, very effective, you were feeling the beam within. So you come out of it beaming. So you come out of the meditation beaming with cosmic intention and energies that you are ready to carpe diem, conquer the day, seize the day. So
Right.
then all of a sudden, 5 hours later, you feel like the beam had dissipated sometimes. Then you
Right.
begin to ask if something has got in your way. Sometimes it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There's many explanations for this, but one is that we can understand in this particular lesson is that the soul has turned its gaze.
Hmm.
That's why we feel that way. So remember the trivium, the triplicity of the soul's consciousness is in 3 directions: onward, upward, downward. The beaming you felt was when the personality was looking up in the soul's downward gaze at one synchronized moment. So that's how we get the beam. The
Okay.
more we expand our consciousness on the hydrogen's variations, the soul learns to gaze in all 3 directions at once.
Wow.
When the soul can learn how to gaze upward, onward, downward simultaneously with equal faculties, they give you another name, the master. So
Yes.
this is an interesting thing to entertain at this time. And we seem to think that the soul is perfect, but it isn't. It is only perfect in its own potential, which is key to your channel,
Yep.
which means that it is evolving.
Hmm. Yes.
What do you think
It
about that?
reminds,
I mean,
I'm
I
sorry.
got the real science sides. I wanted to take a pause real quick just to reflect on that.
Well, it reminds me of when I was reading Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. I don't know if you're familiar with that book,
I am.
but it does, talk about how science and spirituality kind of at one someday will merge together. I feel like we're at that point where it's starting to do that. And it was sort of, this was written 100 years ago, like in the 1920s, 1930s. So he was sort of already projecting forward, viewing, looking forward and seeing that this was going to happen. And he also talked about at one he met one of the what they would have called masters back then, who was able to touch him and make him be able to see 360 vision.
Mm,
See behind his head, he could see all around him, he could see everything at once.
right.
Um, and that kind of reminds me of what this is saying in a way, being able to see everything at once.
Yeah, I think it's just speaking to how we can enter into the triplicit states and be able to have awareness in all directions because the soul sees all. The soul can see it. It may not focus upon it, but we're limited by our potentials because we only can get one angle of what the soul is looking at. But if we can learn to get every angle and connect directly to the Yekada, the highest portion to the singularity, then we're able not only to look at every aspect of what's going to happen in this life, but we're able to look at what's beyond, the fields of consciousness of the 3D. So
Yeah.
maybe they tapped in that particular story was the person tapped in directly into this reality, and pretty much they're a walking shrine of vision beyond the states of the current state of the realms. So
Right.
it has to be a programming in ourself throughout times, through our meditation. The programming builds us up to the stage to where we're able to do these supernatural things that you spoke of is in the book.
Right. And it is a like a practice. It's something that
Oh
you
yeah, absolutely.
continue doing over and over again. It's not doesn't normally happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it doesn't normally happen all at once where you just all of a sudden are able to do it.
Oh no. Well, you probably have some people who are born with the gift, but
Yeah,
they're like a 1 out of 1 billion.
right.
Yeah, they're 1 out of 1 billion because they said that some yogis were able to. Well, you ever heard of the rainbow body?
Yes, that's in that book too. Yes.
Yeah, they can literally disappear. They don't even have a grave. You watch their body disappear into a kaleidoscope of light.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they're able to, when they completely, become the rainbow body, they're able to incarnate specifically where they want to be. And the students know the direct ley line that they're going to incarnate on. So they're
Mm,
able to find their master again. And then you find this child kind of like, what is it, Avatar? What's
right.
the show with the guy with the arrow on his head? Yeah, and there's some
Yeah.
kid walking around this special ability. They say, "Oh yeah, that's master there."
Yeah. Right.
We
Exactly.
found him. Yeah. So that's why they were snatching up these kids. A lot of people think the trafficking has something to do just from that basis, but they were finding a lot of gifted kids, and they wanted to do military assignments and stuff with them. So
What? Yeah. The Montauk experiments were
yep,
done
Montauk.
on the gifted kids, right?
Yep, Montauk is occurring not only up there by New York, is all over.
Right. Well, because
And
they have the underground tunnels
well,
that, and also stargates, things to move them through. So, yeah.
right, and that's what Stranger Things were trying to, nail with everyone. Is this thing is going on right now? I mean, that takes place in the 80s and the 90s, but it's been happening for a while. Is basically
Yes.
what they're saying. So who
Maybe
knows?
longer than we realize.
Yeah, who knows where they're at with it now?
Right. Exactly. Well, I think we will find out soon. I feel like everything is stranger things are right now. Like things are very strange right now.
They are. They are stranger than ever.
Yes, it's just getting weirder and weirder. And I'm not really sure, like people are just not even sure what's real anymore at this point. Nobody knows what's actually real.
It's because they've taken real out of his original status. From a socialistic type of view, the only thing that we contract our attention around is what they tell us to contract our attention around. And if you speak outside of the contraction, then you're the person that's, too woo,
Yeah,
out there with stuff. And I'm like, yo, you telling me that I have to conduct myself only in this contracted space that everyone agrees upon.
right.
So real is becoming based upon an egregore collective.
Right.
When real shouldn't be based upon nothing. It should be just as it is, as the truth. The difference between a truth and a fact is that a fact can change. The truth never changes. And the truth is the only thing that's real. And what I realized is that truth itself is an entity, is a
Mm,
cosmic programmable entity. And they've litigated the awareness of truth away from us. And now we're just looking at what's a fact.
wow.
Facts
I
change all the time. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, I was just feeling like the only thing that I've ever felt that's real is love.
Oh,
That's
absolutely. Oh, that's the
the only
highest of
truth.
it.
Yeah, the only truth is love for me. Like that's anything that isn't love isn't true.
Right. That's the highest portion of it because you can see love in any species. You can
Yes.
see it on a micro level. You can see a
Yeah.
micro activity with microorganisms showing love,
Wow.
showing interconnectivity to help one another survive. That's love.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So once they dead love, which I see, I can go through these comments. If you go through Twitter comments on something that is traumatic. I don't know if you saw the video of the TV falling on the guy during an Asian performance.
No.
They were performing on stage. It was an Asian group, and the TV fell and landed on this person, and they're paralyzed now,
Oh,
middle of the performance. So check the comments. There's
wow.
like no love. It's like, I'm not saying that you have to react in a certain type way, but the comments are like trolling. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I noticed during the Trump era. I'm not, pro-Trump, pro-Biden, none of that. But the spirit of trolling, and if you look at the early troll dolls that came out, I don't know, in the 90s and the 80s, looks just like Trump. But
Mm,
the
interesting.
the spirit of trolling increased in 2017 to a
Yeah.
whole other level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
people,
there's so much that like a lack of compassion. People just don't have that feeling of being able to see themselves in someone else, even. You know what I mean?
right.
And that's really I feel like that's the saddest part, and that's really where the lack of love is.
Me as well. I feel the same way. I feel like I always said there's a certain group of people that have the dynamism to continue the ancient way that we should conduct ourselves as what you call human beings. I don't really believe that the human aspect is just the shell of it all, but now we're dealing with something else that isn't human, and it's in a lot of people. It's in a whole lot of people. Let's just say human is what the ancients we would deal with. We would dwell and say a human is someone that's interconnected to the ancient way. They're in this life cycle currently, 2023, whatever. We're dealing with all this stuff going on. You know, maybe cyber attacks, whatever. But there's an element of them that can still relate to the past and how humans conducted themselves. Today, we have something completely different. You can go outside and see some things that you would never wrap your mind around what people doing. I'm like,
Right, right.
what am I looking at right now?
Yes.
So it's not only is it inhuman, it's something else. It's beyond an entity. It's a hive mind that's slowly deteriorating the concepts and the energy that comes from the love conscious fields, and is feeding a virus that will affect the world years to come. And we're not doing nothing. We're just sitting back looking at it. We're not
Right,
doing, not to say that what can we do, with
right.
this age we live in. If you challenge somebody, oh, I can be whatever I want, I can do whatever I want. So okay, whatever.
There's like a disconnect is what I'm seeing. People are just
Absolutely.
disconnected. And I mean it's one thing to not be attached to the material. That's one thing, but to not be attached to another form, another person, another soul, you
Yes,
know, not have any connection to them in any way, like to not feel their feelings in any way.
because they can't see nothing in themselves in another person.
Yeah,
The
that's right.
ability, I feel like, from an ancient soul is to see a portion of themselves in another person. You can
Yes.
see and relate to a person beyond the means of just meeting each other. It's something psychic almost, I feel. And me personally, I could always feel something no matter what race, no matter none of any of that. I had a connection, of course, to my own people. But when it came to, like, when I used to grow up, when I came up with my mom, came up in the neighborhood, my mom used to come and tell me, hey, you need to be careful hanging with these other races,
Mm,
because the world is not what you think it is. And of course, you have to be understanding. But I always had a connection with someone outside of my race. I always had a friend here and there, from different walks of life, because there's a
right.
contraction to the ancient soul sometimes where that doesn't even matter, because some certain people reincarnated, or maybe it's their first time coming here. Maybe that's the true alien. I don't know, but we've gone through processes up to this point where what the socialism has told you you have to be around, whether it's ethnicity, race, whether it's beliefs, science, religion, whatever it is. The type of people that have that interconnectivity with those love conscious fields, we transcend that. We
Mm,
transcend, we've surpassed that. So we
yeah.
just very relatable, and the best we can do is just be the beacon of light of what we are to the people that's around us, and develop programs like platforms like you and I have, so other like minds can see that, and maybe we can develop a community so people can have a space and talk about how this thing is enveloping.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm feeling. So I like that you
Yes,
expressed that.
it's
That's
no problem.
beautiful.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. I'm gonna just leave it at that. I think that's enough. That's enough for probably a lifetime that I said earlier. I mean, the other stuff gets into way deeper quantum physics and stuff. So yeah, I appreciate
Well,
you.
yeah, I appreciate you too. And thank you for sharing all of that. Um, I just appreciate that you come on here and that you're just willing to speak whatever, you're feeling, and you're open and you're honest and, just and really real, like we were saying, what's real. Well, you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, if I see someone who's, in that same uh s- uh s- um the same reciprocal energy, I'm always gonna be there to help them. It's just I learned that from my mom. That part of me
Mm,
comes from my mom, because
yeah.
she was a perfect example of, I promise you, like anything that was bad happening to a person, my mom, even though we didn't have much early in life, she would offer everything to these people like she had it. And she told me that my grandma was the same way.
Hmm.
They would give it all. We lived on a big farm. They would just dedicate on Christmas or certain holidays. My grandma had 15 kids. She said all of you are going to go to every house in this area and give them some stuff out of this garden out here. So they just started to recognize my family for being the loving, that it went
That's
from
amazing.
right, went from her to my mom. My mom is like the mother of the family now. She's like exemplifying that. Then it's transferring to me, is getting into the patrilinear, part of the group. It came from the matrilinear, and now it's going into the patrilinear, and that's how I am. I'm the same way. If I can help, I'm gonna help. I'm gonna be there for people.
Yes, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, that's great that
So
you
much.
honor her that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I guess we'll leave it at this.
Yeah,
And thanks again for coming on. And we'll see you again next time, hopefully. And
absolutely.
yeah,
Thanks for having
yeah,
me. Make sure you guys follow me on Osaru on YouTube, and make sure everyone who's on from my YouTube follow Lisia's channel. She's doing great things right now. And
thank you.
she also has a Patreon that she's doing right now, so we can have these, great conversations and interviews.
Yeah,
So we appreciate what you're doing right now.
thank you. I appreciate what you're doing.
All right, you have a good one now.
Thanks. You too. Oh, you're the host.
Oh, okay. All right. You guys
You
have a
have to
good
stop
one.
recording.
Peace.